What's good, Toronto Raptor fans? The Kawhi Leonard trade is, let's call it, in the works. The Toronto Raptors, according to Jake Fisher, have spent the weekend exploring trades with the Los Angeles Clippers for their superstar, Kawhi Leonard. According to the report, it is Brandon Ingram plus stuff, and the Toronto Raptors would prefer to trade Ingram instead of Barrett. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. I'm going to talk about this in depth. We've covered this trade saga as pretty much as well as we could have up until this point. We made a video 2-3 days ago saying there was like some legit fire here, and I want to tell you what I knew back then that I think people are getting wrong. When the initial report broke, there was a mention of maybe you should talk about his former teams. Now, this was a deliberately misleading statement, which led a lot of people to run with San Antonio, Toronto. I reached out to somebody almost immediately because I couldn't believe it. And while I do not know the Raptors side of this, I do know the Spurs side of this. The San Antonio Spurs are not interested in Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if Kawhi's camp would be interested in San Antonio, but I somehow really doubt it. He had a very, very messy departure from San Antonio, and a lot of the people that are still there were there back then, and they're still here now. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for a team that is super young, that just made the NBA Finals, for them to somehow pivot away into Kawhi Leonard at the age of 35. For a lot of people, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Toronto Raptors to do this either, because it's not like the Raptors have been bumping up against, the wall of the Eastern Conference Finals for years. But I think internally, the Toronto Raptors believe that Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl provides a pretty comfortable surrounding cast for Kawhi Leonard. And of course, I believe that if we're pivoting through options, depending on how Kawhi Leonard feels, he may look at Toronto as an attractive option specifically because Colin Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes are exactly the types of players that I feel someone like Kawhi Leonard would actually appreciate. Now, there's a whole lot of variables in this story, and I want to break them down piece by piece. Variable number one is the ongoing league investigation. The fallout of that investigation, of course, due to the KL Aspire, Kawhi Leonard aspiration, $48 million for a no-show job investigation by Pablo Torre. Another thing that we broke down, I think, pretty well on this channel some months back when it broke and gave the full details of why something like this would have happened. Now, back then, Kawhi left about $49 million on the table to reject the Raptors extension and go to the LA Clippers. When he went to the LA Clippers, the Clippers were his chosen destination. The Clippers managed to do something that the Raptors couldn't do, which is they secured Paul George. That was one thing. And they happened to be in California, which is where he's from. He wanted to go home. I believe at the time that the Clippers presented a very rosy outcome for Kawhi Leonard. Play at home, play with Paul George, we'll build this thing around you. 6 years later, 7 years later, it hasn't materialized into anything that even resembles an NBA Finals appearance, much less a championship. Kawhi and PG went to LA to win championships in LA, to restore the Clippers brand. In many ways, the decision to go to LA has actually plummeted that franchise into further controversy because of the trade. They traded a future league MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They traded a boatload of draft picks. Paul George didn't work. Kawhi was often injured. They didn't, they ran into Luka several times in the playoffs. It just didn't work. And around them, the league changed. Superpowers emerged. And now there are two massive superpowers in the West that I don't think Kawhi has a chance of competing with. So now we look at the situation a little bit differently. At the time, some people said that Kawhi Leonard didn't want to be in Canada. I didn't really buy that, because from everything that came out of his camp, he was really close to choosing the Raptors. And a lot of people say at the time that Kawhi used the Toronto Raptors as leverage. I don't think that's true. I don't think that actually happened. The team that he used as leverage at the time was the LA Lakers. He had no intention of ever going to the Lakers. It was a home run hit. If he had any intention, they waited for him. They cleared up money for him. They made him a pitch. Come play with LeBron. Come play with AD. he had no intention of going and playing with LeBron. This was always going to be, I'm going to LA Clippers, or if they can't do what I need them to do, I'm coming back to Toronto on a 3-year deal. At the time, however, American reporting, who obviously were still a little bit butthurt about the fact that Canada had just secured its first NBA title, wanted to push the narrative that Kawhi hated Canada, that Kawhi wanted to get away from Canada, and that in a lot of ways, this was a very bad optical look. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I've never believed it. Everything Kawhi has ever said about Toronto, Canada at the time always came back to, I didn't think we had the pieces to run it back. I didn't think Pascal Siakam, the core around there, you know, you could argue his two best players were older than him significantly. Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol. You could look at Serge Ibaka. Maybe he didn't see the vision with Pascal and Fred and OG behind him. Maybe he didn't trust that that would mature into a core that could actually compete. Of course, in hindsight, the Raptors ended up winning almost as many games, if not more games, with him the next year without him. And then we are left to wonder once again, just like with the Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter situation, what if, what if, what if? So bring it to current day, and the Kawhi Leonard saga in LA has become messy. The Clippers have completely torn down the core around him. First, they refuse to pay Paul George. Then they trade for James Harden. They bring in James Harden. Suddenly, there's a little bit of chemistry there. That kind of falls apart. James Harden goes away. There's a young center, probably a top 5, top 7 center in the NBA that Kawhi relies on heavily in Ivica Zubac. He ends up going at last year's draft, for last year's deadline, to the Indiana Pacers. So they gutted the roster around him in the midst of a season, which I could argue is one of the 3 best seasons of Kawhi's life at the age of 34. He played like an MVP last year. He played like a top 5 MVP candidate last year. If the Clippers were a little bit more successful, he probably would have gotten a lot of MVP votes. Kawhi Leonard is still amazing. Amazing. And I don't think that the Clippers are rewarding that faith or that production with a lot of faith. Because right now they took a gamble with the Indiana Pacers on that trade. They make the trade with the Indiana Pacers on the chance that they get the 5th overall pick. They get the 5th overall pick. I'm sure Kawhi Leonard is looking at that 5th overall pick and saying, that kid is probably going to be good by the time I'm retired. I don't think Kawhi Leonard is in the business of waiting for Keaton Wagler to figure out how to be an NBA player. I don't think Kawhi Leonard is sitting there like, yeah, me and Darius Garland and Ben Mathurin, we're really going to run the West without a center. I think Kawhi Leonard is looking at this Clippers roster and saying, y'all are either going to pay me 5 years at the absolute max, super max that I could take to give me the comfort, or I'm walking to a situation that gives me and checks off more of my needs. So the reporting was he would prefer to stay with the LA Clippers, provided a deal can get done. What is the definition of a deal getting done according to Kawhi Leonard's camp? Probably the Clippers give up everything. The Clippers give him every ounce of money that is available every year that is possible to protect against the potential of injury later in his career. The counter to that is, if not that, then there are 2 places that Kawhi Leonard be willing to sign an extension. I'm going to debunk that myth and tell you there's no 2 place. There's 1 place that Kawhi Leonard would sign an extension, and that is Toronto. Now, Detroit allegedly, and of course, I don't want to say allegedly because it's reportedly, Detroit offered a significant package for Kawhi Leonard on the basis that Kawhi Leonard would agree to sign an extension. This was last week. When they figured that he would not agree to an extension, and again, to understand, Kawhi Leonard has 1 year left on his deal. It's about $52 million. At that point, he will hit unrestricted free agency. A team trading for him risks the exact same risk that the Toronto Raptors risked in 2018, when they traded DeMar DeRozan for him. The difference here is, at that point, you were trading for a guy who had made his destination known, LA. He had also been coming off a lot of injuries, and there was some, inkling of would he play, would he not play. And he was exiting a very messy divorce in San Antonio. However, he laid it clear at the time, I'm going to LA. Trade me to LA. Boston wanted him. Toronto wanted him. Miami wanted him in 2018. Everybody backed off. The Raptors stepped up. The Raptors offered Jakob Poeltl, DeMar DeRozan, and 1 first-round pick. Now imagine why that was. The reasoning was Kawhi cratered his value so significantly by rejecting any extension offer from Boston. If Kawhi had even in his damaged image, he was still like the number 2, number 3 player in the league the last time he was healthy. If at that point Kawhi Leonard had said, "I'll sign an extension with Boston," Boston would have traded Jaylen Brown and everything they could have to get that dude right there to play with Jason Tatum. The Raptors took a gamble. Now, the Raptors won a championship with Kawhi, but the reason that they made that trade was twofold, and something that I don't think has been talked about enough, but really should be talked about. Number one, they wanted Kawhi. Number two, they didn't want DeMar. There's always this idea that somehow the Raptors were like reluctant to part with DeMar DeRozan. The minute ink hit the paper and DeMar shit the bed the way that he did in the playoffs that year, the Raptors had massive buyer's remorse. They saw the future with DeMar DeRozan. You're not going to win a championship with this guy. He's a great guy, great scorer. It's not going to happen. We have him for 4 more years. What do? The Spurs, of course, at the time, had offers on the table, low ball offers from multiple teams that they could have swung Kawhi to. Maybe there's some truth to the whole like spitefulness of like, oh, you want to go to LA? Let's send you to Canada. But the reality here is the Spurs also didn't want to tear it down. They wanted to remain competitive. DeMar and Jakob allowed them to do that. The first round pick, which ended up becoming very little, I think it was Malachi Branham or something like that. It didn't materialize into much. The point here is that was a clusterfuck of a situation, and it resulted in a championship for the Toronto Raptors. Kawhi left, and the media reporting around everything with Kawhi is almost always wrong. I've just noticed that Kawhi doesn't talk to a lot of people. It's very rare that you can get anybody on record who knows anything about what the guy is thinking, what he wants, what kind of contract extension he wants. He could literally get up on the podium tomorrow and say, "I'm retiring from basketball," and it wouldn't surprise me. So there's a mercurial aspect to this, but there are consistent factors. Consistent factor number 1, he wants what he wants. Consistent factor number 2, familiarity and trust are very important to this man. Number 3, medical staff is very important to this man. And number 4, winning is very important to this man. I don't know if the Clippers have kept him super healthy. I certainly think his best, health season in terms of playoff success was with the Raptors. There is an established rhythm and trust with the Raptors. The Raptors are a good organization with good people. They do not leak anything about their players that shouldn't be leaked. They are a very airtight, very tight-lipped organization. You'll notice they're the one organization that nobody ever gets the scoop on their draft picks. And that is perhaps the ultimate Kawhi Leonard front office. The established relationship with guys like Bobby Webster, he's still here. Darko Rajakovic was not here the last time, but Jama Malalela was. Right. I think Jama won the championship with the Raptors, so there is some familiarity there. There's also familiarity with Jakob Poeltl, who he shared half a season with. There's also a little bit of a bond off the court with one of the players on the Raptors, which I'm not at liberty to say. The point here is that the Toronto Raptors actually present Kawhi Leonard with a pretty decent landing spot. Number 1, when Kawhi left, the one thing the Raptors did not do is throw him under the bus. They never said that he made false promises. They never said he betrayed us. They never let anything leak from behind the locker room, like anything that might be disparaging to his reputation. That mattered to him. When Kawhi came back to earn his ring, if you're a Raptor fan, you remember Tracy McGrady coming back, Vince Carter coming back. They got booed for years. Very few stars have ever rejected the Raptors, left in free agency, and come back and received standing ovation. Kawhi Leonard, when he received his ring, which, by the way, had a little middle finger engraved in the middle, and you're telling me he's going to go back to the Spurs, please. The point here is Kawhi Leonard was probably a little bit surprised. Maybe he didn't know what to expect. And maybe some part of his little cyborg heart melted the day that the Raptor fans showed him so much love and continue to show him so much love, even though he was the one that rejected them. And so I look at that and I say, Kawhi has received love every single time he's come back to Toronto. He's received tribute videos. They always put the welcome back Kawhi signs. there's a sense of familiarity and home. Now, you might think of it as a little bit pathetic. You might say, well, why are you, glazing a guy who rejected you? That's ego. Forget the ego. You might even look at me and say, Rob, don't you have any pride? He rejected us once before. But now you are LA. You are LA now. Remember when he wanted to leave San Antonio and his chosen destination was LA, and LA was the only place where he would sign pen on paper the minute he was signed, and all the LA teams were like, I don't want to give up significant assets because I can just sign him in free agency, and they were right. Well, now there's only one team that he'll sign an extension with, and it's not Boston. It's not the Golden State Warriors. It might be the Houston Rockets. It might be. There's like some rumblings that, he would concede to Houston if this Raptors Clippers thing can't work out. It's the Raptors. The dude wants to go home. And some people said, well, maybe this thing is leverage. Let's debunk that for a second. If the reporting and the rumors and everything that the narrative around Kawhi is that, and I mean, this is true. He loves warm weather. This was evident in 2016 when he didn't leave his hotel and complained about the cold in Toronto the entire time, in which, he's made it known multiple times. He does not like the cold. This is not a guy who likes cold weather. Cool. Detroit is a cold weather city. Boston is a cold weather city. New York is a cold weather city. It just so happens that the teams that are vying for his services all happen to be cold weather cities. So, with the exception of Houston and Miami and Golden State. So, the point of using the Raptors as leverage when the reporting is already that he didn't want to be in Canada, he already left the situation, he doesn't like the cold, the guy likes to walk around with his shorts year round, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he wants to be close to home, he wants to be close to family. Okay. Well, there's a team in Golden State in the Bay Area that really wants Kawhi Leonard. Why not use them as leverage? If the point of contract negotiations, and I think Fred VanVleet would co-sign this if he was on this show, you just need to find one person who's willing to give you what you want. That's your leverage. You don't need to find 15 because that's a bidding war. You just need to find one. You need to find one team that is willing to give you the extension that you want, that has the assets to make the Clippers happy. Why not the Warriors? The Warriors are home. The Warriors are still, close-ish to LA. I mean, it's Oakland to LA is not that far. I mean, it's a lot further. It's a lot closer to LA than Toronto is. Why not stay in California? You want to be in California? Stay in California. You could take a flight home. The point here is this reporting by Michael Grange that was not reporting, this speculation by Michael Grange that this might just be leverage. I just don't buy that. It's not leverage. Why would you use the Raptors as leverage? I could understand using the Houston Rockets as leverage. It's a no tax state. It's still in the South. It's close enough to LA that it could still feel like home. I could understand using the Warriors as leverage. They have Steph Curry. They're more in a win now window. They still have Draymond Green. If they were able to offer some young pieces, or maybe even, Yaxel Landerberg, the draft pick that they just had, if they were able to make that happen, cool. But there's a deadline on this. And let me talk about two things. Number one, there is a deadline on this. The Clippers, according to someone that I talked to last week, or not last week, this week, well, Sunday. So it's Sunday today. Wow. I am really nuts. I thought it was Saturday today. I'm off my rocker right now. It is Sunday today. Someone I talked to last week, so this was Thursday or Friday, said that the Clippers are not willing to play this out without a contract extension. They need ink on paper. So the urgency is now. You're going to move him now. It's very difficult to move a player as good and as big as Kawhi Leonard in, at the trade deadline. If things sour, if things don't go his way, they're not willing to lose him for nothing. They don't want to be in the same situation that Toronto was in. So they're willing to move him now. Teams that would be trading for him would have to trade the gamble. And once again, he's already shown you this is not someone to gamble with. When he tells you he's not signing, he's not signing. So this woo Kawhi, this is not going to work for Detroit. This scales back the offers that other teams are willing to put because they don't have the extension on paper. Detroit, I'm assuming, would happily offer Asar Thompson. Happily. Cade is in his prime right now. Kawhi puts you over the top. Why wouldn't you offer Tobias Harris, and pieces and picks and Asar if it meant getting a player who's even better than Cade on that team? You would. but you wouldn't offer it for a rental because Asar Thompson is like 23 years old. You would offer Ron Holland easily. He's a serviceable young player. So the value situation changes because when you don't get the extension, when you can't secure an extension, the offer scales back. If he was willing right now to, okay, here's a speculation. If Kawhi Leonard wakes up tomorrow and decides, you know what, South Beach would be nice, Giannis would be nice, I'm quite confident in saying that the Miami Heat would absolutely explore a Bam Adebayo for a Kawhi Leonard package, provided the surrounding pieces can be worked out and Jovic can be thrown in the deal. I don't doubt that. Kawhi is a way better fit next to Giannis. They're both on a similar timeline. It's a way better idea. Kawhi's still a top 10 player. Giannis is a top 10 player. You'd be pairing two of the best players in the world in South Beach, of course, but you won't do it for a rental. So this really is Kawhi pushing his way to his desired destination. And so I ask you, what's the second team? What is the second team that he's willing to sign the extension with? Because I don't see it. The Raptors would never do this without the extension. Never. It's never going to happen. Risking losing Kawhi again in free agency would be the biggest PR nightmare. This franchise might actually fold and move to, like, I don't know, Guangdong, okay? Guangdong or Mexico City, if that shit were to happen twice. You're not losing him again, okay? It may not work out perfectly. He is older. He might get injured, whatever. That is a separate issue. The Raptors are not losing Kawhi Leonard in free agency again. If that was even remotely on the table, the offer is straight up Brandon Ingram with nothing else attached. Because the situation is the same, right? But because Kawhi is willing to sign that extension, now the Raptors can sweeten the pot. And they can go higher than just about anybody else. How high can they go? They can go pretty high. They can go really high. They can go obnoxiously high. They shouldn't, though. They absolutely shouldn't. I've heard people say throw Colin Murray-Boyles in this deal. Are you high? Are you insane? You should never throw Colin Murray-Boyles. The flip side of this is the Raptors actually have the leverage. If he's only willing to sign an extension with one team, then you actually have leverage in this negotiation. He's given you the leverage. Kawhi Leonard just gave the Raptors a freaking cheat sheet on their negotiations. The Raptors can literally walk from this table. Oh, you don't like our offer of Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 1 first and 1 swap? Cool. Go find the competing offer. And now, if you're Detroit or Boston, you're trading for a player that may be unhappy being where he is with you, didn't choose you, and frankly could walk in free agency next year. Welcome to the Raptors in 2019. And he's proven that he could win a championship and still walk. So you're in a bad situation. Now let's talk about the league section of this. A lot of people expect Adam Silver to throw the hammer down on Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer. I'm going to have some very quick advice for those people. Don't hold your breath. If it was going to happen, it would have already happened. There's no chance in hell. Okay, I want to say no chance. There is less than a 1% chance that the Clippers get significantly docked for this. There is less than a 1% chance that anything happens with Kawhi Leonard other than maybe his contract being, amended, avoided in some way, docked, fined, something. This is not how Adam Silver's NBA has operated. They have been very lenient. David Stern's NBA, to the OG to the OG fans of the NBA, that dude would have thrown the gauntlet at Steve Ballmer. He wouldn't have cared. He would have docked him 15 first-round picks for this bullshit because they tampered all year and they got away with it. Things happen in Adam Silver's NBA that simply should not happen and have not happened, and it disrupts the competitive balance. It really, honestly, this entire shift really started with LeBron and Chris Bosh conspiring to go to the, something that I don't think is reported enough. When the Raptors complained about Chris Bosh and the tampering that the Miami Heat did, I believe the compensation was 1 first-round pick. Do I remember this correctly? Yeah, that's how much the league cares. The LA Clippers tampered all year. They sent Lawrence Frank to Raptor games to woo Kawhi. They absolutely negotiated with Uncle Dennis before the free agent deadline. Forget about the accusations. They tampered all year, and the Raptors did nothing. They got nothing. Adam Silver looked the other way because this is unfortunately how the world works right now. So I don't think that's going to happen at all. But what could happen is to take the plug away from the socket, so to speak. Clippers, Kawhi is bad for league. It's a very simple equation. The LA Clippers tampered. Kawhi Leonard was complicit. Uncle Dennis is part of Kawhi's camp. Fraudulent activity took place between KL Aspire, Aspiration, Steve Ballmer. And so, what do we want to do as the league? We could penalize this team behind the scenes in a very, very mafioso hush hush way by kind of telling them, listen, we don't want to optically destroy the reputation of our richest owner. We also don't necessarily want to disrupt your basketball operations by taking away 15 first round picks. However, we are under immense pressure from the other 29 owners that something must happen here. And so, in a secret room with closed off to the media, with hush hush, everybody protects everybody's secret, a decision is made that the LA Clippers must move away from Kawhi Leonard, that will be their sort of under the table penalty. They have to trade him. And maybe when the Clippers destroyed a championship core, or at least a competitive core around Harden, Zubac, in the midst of a career resurgence from Kawhi, they already saw it coming when they chose to invest that 5th overall pick in Keaton Wagler and optimized, chose to get back, younger pieces like Darius Garland and Ben Mathurin. They already knew that they were in for a rebuild. And so now this Kawhi Leonard thing is just the finishing touch of getting him out of LA. I do not think that Kawhi Leonard is going to start next season as an LA Clipper. I'm quite comfortable saying that something has to happen here. I don't think the league wants him in LA. I don't think the league wants him with the Clippers. I don't think the league wants to put him out on a Clippers jersey and put him on posters, because that in and of itself is an admission or a reminder of what happened. So now we push him away. And which team do you believe suffered the most for what the Clippers did? The Raptors. They tampered all year. Who suffered? The Toronto Raptors. They paid him $49 million, disrupting the very competitive balance that the CBA has designed for teams to be able to retain their players. They circumvent the cap. Specifically, when people talk about the $48 million no-show job, Kawhi Leonard left that $48 million from the Toronto Raptors. That $48 million is what he left on the table by choosing to leave the Raptors. So realistically, he's worth well more. If there's no salary cap, he's making $100 million coming off that championship. So realistically, let's not point like the moral finger. You can point the legal finger. You can definitely say cap circumvention is bad for business, but talk about business. Don't talk about ethics, because Kawhi Leonard brings back more value every single year. He has been underpaid every single year of his career other than the 1 year he missed. Honestly, I'm telling you the truth. The guy is a huge name. He's a huge big-time player. He's a playoff, winner. He's a 2-time finals MVP. He has never been fairly paid according to the rules of the cap. Okay. Let's just be real. LeBron has never been fairly paid. Not one day in his life. Luka has never been fairly paid. Shea has never been fairly paid. Superstars, Giannis has never been fairly paid. None of these guys are fairly paid. You know who's fairly paid right now, or overpaid a little bit? Brandon Ingram, Darius Garland, Derek White. Second-rate stars get paid fairly. Karl-Anthony Towns. These guys get paid the max. LeBron gets paid the max, but LeBron is worth 3 times the max. This is why trading for Kawhi Leonard makes so much sense, because in an open market, Brandon Ingram is worth $35 million and Kawhi Leonard is worth $90 million. The gap between these two players is not small. It is massive. So if the Toronto Raptors can do this, it changes the equation completely. And there's a very good economic reason to do this. Kawhi Leonard brings back what you lost when Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby went away. You know what he brings back? He brings back the average fan. Do you know what the Toronto Raptors are missing more than anything right now is the interest of the average fan? I know diehards like the 717 people in here who are, like really just chewing on this idea of Kawhi Leonard come back, you absolutely have been locked in to the Jamal Shed and Jonathan Mobo and Grady Dick Raptors. Okay. You've been locked into that. But the average fan does not buy tickets to support this type of team. Ingram is cool, but he's not a marquee guy. Vince Carter was a marquee guy. Beyond that, Kawhi was a marquee guy. That's it. That's your whole history. Chris Bosh was never. Siakam was never. Barnes has not yet been. The marquee guy changes the economy of scale. We average around 4,000 to 4,500 views per post-game live. If Kawhi Leonard were to come to Toronto, or 4 years ago if Kevin Durant had come to Toronto, or even 4 years ago if Damian Lillard had come to Toronto, if Steph Curry were to come to Toronto, if Giannis were to come to Toronto, that number would exceed 10,000. I'm quite certain of that. It would be that drastic. And if Pensare Basketball is so far removed from the Raptors business, like core business, which is tickets, jerseys, merchandise, franchise valuation. That's the core. TV rights, advertising. This is the core. Season tickets. This is the core Raptors. Everything around the Raptors business is like podcasters, vendors, your freaking Temu salesman on working off of Amazon trying to like make merch off of Kawhi's hand. Okay. The ancillary guys, those people outside the Raptors who kind of like suck on the Raptors' teat. It's kind of awkward to consider myself in that bunch, but we all eat off of the team that we cover. And it's taken me a long time to understand why Raptors media were wanting Scotty Barnes to get traded for Giannis, wanting Scotty Barnes to get traded for Dame, wanting Scotty Barnes to get traded for, Kevin Durant. 3 years ago, this media space would have given up Scotty Barnes and 4 first-round picks to get Kawhi Leonard back, because everybody understands what that marquee star does to the common fan. And if you really think about it, that's where organizations make their business. That's where they make their money. So what the Raptors have built here is a very sustainable, very easy to root for team. They're smart, they're cultured, they're disciplined, they play two-way. Where is the big shot maker? Where's the headline grabber? Where's the guy where you say, oh, tonight's marquee matchup, this guy versus my guy? That's what the common fan is in for. Watching Kawhi Leonard versus Luka Doncic head-to-head. Watching Damian Lillard versus Steph Curry head-to-head. Watching Kobe versus Vince head-to-head. This is where the average fan derives enjoyment and value and entertainment. And this is an entertainment product as much as it is a basketball team. Now, I will say very much that the Toronto Raptors should absolutely offer what is reasonable for Kawhi. What is reasonable? Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 1 first-round pick which one, lightly protected, and a swap. That is what you should offer. The swap is largely irrelevant. The Clippers will be worse than the Raptors, I think. So the swap is going to be mixed bag. Doesn't matter too much. But maybe the Clippers would want to swap in the event that Kawhi gets injured or Kawhi misses a season or something. Scotty can't hold it down. In terms of Ingram, by metrics alone, the Raptors had a better overall net rating with Ingram off the floor last year. So a little addition by subtraction, not so fast. I think Toronto Raptors fans have very quickly underrated some of their players and what roles they really function in. Ingram's key utility to the Toronto Raptors is that he sucks up possessions. He sucks up usage. He is somebody that in a late clock situation can make things happen at an above average rate. That doesn't mean that Brandon Ingram offense equals above average offense. It means Brandon Ingram with 3 seconds on the clock is probably better than Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, and Scotty Barnes with 3 seconds on the clock, and definitely better than RJ Barrett with 3 seconds on the clock or Emmanuel Quickly with 3 seconds on the clock, because he has the size, the length, the skill, the handle to probably generate a reasonably clean look for himself. Doesn't go in often enough. So that one thing that Ingram actually provided. The second thing he provided, which was of great utility to the Toronto Raptors, is that he drew the best matchup almost every night. Ingram took on the OG Anunoby matchup, or he took on the Herb Jones matchup, or the Tamani Kamara matchup, and in every situation, or the Asar Thompson matchup. And what that meant was Scotty Barnes would take the Ron Holland matchup. If one guy's being guarded by Steph Castle, then the other guy is being guarded by maybe Keldon Johnson. And what that really did was it unlocked the third guy, which is RJ Barrett. And that's why the Raptors' offensive rating, despite their very flawed, very spacing starved roster, really just blossomed. The net rating for that starting lineup was great, precisely because teams didn't know how to handle two big wings and still be able to get out too quickly, still be able to cut off the RJ drives, and still be able to zap up offensive rebounds from Jakob Poeltl. Basically, the Raptors took five really good players, overpaid four of them, and put them on the court together and said, deal with it. Now, they don't have a lot of depth. I don't think Kawhi Leonard is going to solve that problem. Here's the problem Kawhi Leonard does solve. And I'm going to explain this from the perspective of why the Toronto Raptors drafted Allen Graves, Colin Murray-Boyles, and this was going to be a deeper subject, but I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of how the Toronto Raptors think about basketball. Give me 1 second here. I'll drink some water, and I'm going to get to this. It's going to be interesting because I was thinking about this a lot. I want you to think of this word. What is the word that I am talking about? I am talking about hands. Okay. I don't have huge hands. I have good hands, though. I catch basketballs. If you put a basketball on the court around me, I will swipe it away. I have strong hands, too. They're a little bit soft. Maybe I'm getting a little bit soft. Maybe you need to do a little bit more mechanic work like Allen Graves. The Toronto Raptors have had a lot of success with guys with really good hands. Allen Graves has some of the best hands I've ever evaluated. Scotty Barnes has really good hands. Fred VanVleet had majestic hands, if you will. Pause. He had some of the best hands, and they weren't big. Fred VanVleet had small hands. Big hands are not good hands. Good hands are coordinated, strong. They get the basketball. They're very functional. It's very difficult to find players with great hands who don't have a ton of deficiencies. But if you want to look through every single player, well, not every single player, but most players who've been picked after pick 30 that have been successful, I want you to think of the list. Okay. Undrafted Fred VanVleet, 50-something pick Marc Gasol, Nikola Jokic in the 40s, Draymond Green. What are we talking about? Dennis Rodman. What are we talking about? When we talk about late bloomers and late picks, what are we really talking about? We are talking about some of the best hands in the NBA history. I'll give you a team that had some of the best hands of any team I've ever seen, and that was the 96-97 Chicago Bulls. Dennis Rodman had, like, whatever you think of Colin Murray-Boyle's hands, that's Dennis Rodman's hands. He got his hands on every loose ball, tipped everything, stole anything. He had strong hands. He got rebounds. He was 6'6", 6'7", out of position. He could soar over 7-footers and get rebounds. His hands were majestic. How many times have you seen a player go up for a rebound and they can't even secure it? Hands impact basketball in a million ways. And I want to make a case that Kawhi Leonard has some of the best hands in the NBA, period. Bobby Webster, had this little clip on the Open Gym episode. He's like, hands, 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 team. Yes. Let's talk about that. How do the Toronto Raptors think about basketball? I'm going to boil it down to one word: possessions. The Raptors think about basketball in terms of number and quality of possessions. Now, Kawhi Leonard, I'm going to tie this back to Kawhi Leonard and tell you why Kawhi Leonard would be so high on the Raptors board. And it has nothing to do with nostalgia. It's what he does for the possession battle. When you think about winning possessions, what are you thinking about? I'm going to talk about winning possessions and delaying possessions. Winning possessions comes down to block shots, steals, rebounds, made shots are a part of it. That's shot quality. We're talking about tips, those miraculous bigs who can just tip a ball and their hands are so controlled, like Marcus Gasol used to do this all the time. He could tip the ball, and because his hands were so accurate, he would tip it to a teammate. What else do great hands help? Passing. Passing security is the opposite end of turnovers, deflections, steals. So, on the one hand, I would argue that the team with the better hands is going to win the possession battle more often than not. What else influences the possession battle, obviously, is ball security. Good hands help you dribble the basketball. So, on the one hand, great hands are going to help you steal the ball from other teams. On the other hand, your passing dexterity, your ability to pass through the left hand, right hand, accuracy of your passes, a lot of this is going to come down to your hands. Michael Jordan, when Phil Jackson was asked the difference between Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, he said the hands. That was the difference. Michael could palm the ball. He had great hands defensively. He was extremely disruptive. Kawhi Leonard has those hands. The way Kawhi is able to control the basketball in tight spots, his hands are so strong that he is able to grip a basketball tighter than anyone else is able to hit the basketball. And that's often, I think, what the Toronto Raptors maybe have noticed with Brandon Ingram. He doesn't have the best hands. He sometimes throws passes a little bit off target. He is a little bit loose with the basketball. He's very high hipped. The big difference between Ingram and Kawhi Leonard is the center of gravity. Ingram is extremely high center of gravity, just like Scotty Barnes. Unlike Scotty Barnes, though, he doesn't quite have the strength to deal with that. So you end up with a skinny Giannis situation. Giannis had to bulk up to be successful. He couldn't just be in Wemby's frame and be successful because when you are high hipped and have a high center of gravity, how do you move players out of the way? When a player just gets lower than you, you're jumping up against the wall. Kawhi Leonard, on the other hand, is a completely different beast when it comes to center of gravity. Kawhi Leonard can get underneath defenders. It helps him defensively. It helps him get skinny. It helps him offensively tremendously. The other side of this, and this is what the Raptors really prioritize, is shot quality. So number one, we're trying to win the possession battle every night. We're trying to get extra offensive rebounds. We're trying to get steals. What about those deflections and the Raptors' philosophy of picking up 94 feet? Okay. Well, there's a theory that you want to invite the sixth defender into the play. And the sixth defender is the shot clock. The Raptors usually force a team, especially when Jamal Shead, Emmanuel Quickley are doing this job, and when Davion Mitchell was here, they are trying to get a team 16, 15 seconds in the clock before the first pass is made. Now, occasionally, this type of pressure is going to result in an 8-second violation like it did against the Cleveland Cavaliers, that big Scotty Barnes, Jamal Shead play. Sometimes it's going to result in an errant pass and a steal. However, very often what it's going to result, like 24 out of 25 times, what it's going to do is it's going to delay the offense, which means the first pass is not being made until maybe 16, 15, 14 seconds. Now there's 14 seconds. Okay. Now you have great hands in the passing lanes. Once again, what do deflections do? They reset offense. Reset offense, delay offense. Every single Raptors possession, they're trying to turn it into a turnover, or they're trying to turn it into a late clock situation for the other team. This is the goal of their basketball. Kawhi Leonard helps you with that tremendously. So we've talked about the defensive end. Now let's talk about the inverse, which is the offensive end. How do you do the opposite? So what you're trying to do to teams, how do you stop teams from doing that to you? Well, the Toronto Raptors are a very pass-friendly team. They often lead the league in passes. More passes equal better shot quality, but more turnovers. So think about it. The team that has Luka Doncic or James Harden dribble the air out of the basketball, and they're very good ball handlers, so they don't lose the basketball very often. They're not going to have a lot of turnovers, but the shot difficulty and quality is going to be very difficult. That's why you pay those guys, because they can make the difficult shots look easy. However, in a system that already heavily relies on ball movement and passing and all that stuff, what you need is closers in space. The Raptors don't really have that. They tried to put the ball in Brandon Ingram's hands. He had the worst clutch percentage of any star in the league last year that took a serious volume of shots. So they couldn't really rely on him in those clutch situations. And the other side of Ingram is he doesn't provide anywhere near the space that Kawhi Leonard did. Now, to those people who came into this game, into this live from the Canada match, Alphonso Davies is the best player on Canada. I don't think that's much of a, you know, hot take. Okay, I don't exactly watch a ton of soccer, but even to me, even to my eye, even to my ignorant soccer eye, the second that man stepped onto the field, the entire game changed. It was deadlock 0-0. Shout outs to Canada scoring in the 92nd minute. He was a huge part of changing the momentum of that game. Why? Attention. Look at how the South Africa defenders guarded him. This is exactly what Kawhi Leonard does for you. When he doesn't have the ball, he gives you space because nobody is leaving a guy who shoots nearly 40% from three for the last 3 years on high volume. The bat, impossible. Number two, he protects the ball. He's not fancy. He doesn't turn it over a lot. He's usually just going to put it in the bucket. He gets to the line. He's insane in the mid range. He draws double teams. This is why you want to keep RJ Barrett. You want to keep RJ Barrett because RJ Barrett is going to feast off those double teams. He's going to cut through. If you could do this with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes, can you imagine the season of efficiency that RJ is going to have? It's going to be open catch and shoots all day. All day. So when I look at a situation like this, I'm like, what the Raptors so desperately need is exactly what Kawhi Leonard provides. Defensively, he is disruptive. He's positionally sound. He's going to rebound the basketball better than Ingram will, which wins the possession battles. He's going to get steals that Ingram wouldn't get, blocks that Ingram isn't going to get, and that wins the possession battle. Alternatively, he's going to be dialed in defensively because he's now playing on a very serious defensive team, a team that is surrounded with good defenders. Do you know what good defenders do to other good defenders? They multiply them. Scotty Barnes has to cover up so much for RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick. By playing on a roster with other great defenders, you're supercharging your already great defenders, which is Colin Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes, are going to be completely unlocked. The pressure that Kawhi can provide and Shed can provide and Jacoby can provide and Graves can provide will unlock steals galore. Now what are you doing with the possession battle? On every night, you're taking 10, 12, 13 more shots than the other team because on the one hand, Kawhi's not turning it over. On the other hand, he's also putting it in the basket an abnormal amount at a super high efficiency. Number three, his actual shot quality is in the 98th percentile among NBA stars precisely because he doesn't take bad shots. Every shot Kawhi Leonard has ever taken, I would say 92% of the shots that Kawhi Leonard takes are awesome shots. He is like a computer algorithm designed an offensive player. He does not make a lot of mistakes, and he takes the highest quality of shots and he hits them at an absurd rate. This immediately boosts your offensive rating by 5. Your defensive rating goes up by like 3. What are you doing here? You might become a championship contender overnight. Yes, this is why the Raptors have to consider this because Kawhi Leonard is the cheat code. He is the thing that unlocks a great defense and turns it into the best defense in the NBA, the best defense in the Eastern Conference. You might be a better defense than freaking OKC. If this actually comes through and you don't have to give up Colin Murray-Boyles and you keep Scotty Barnes and Kawhi Leonard is dialed in defensively and you can load manage him and only play him like 65 games and you can keep his minutes below 30 and off the bench you got Allen Graves and Jamal Shed picking up full court and Emmanuel Quickley buys in. What about Jakob Poeltl? Jakob Poeltl is often like maligned a lot, but he is still this great ball security center. If he has a good point guard to work with, he has great touch around the rim. You can't leave him. I'm not comparing Jakob Poeltl to friggin' Wemby, but when he goes into the paint, people follow him because he is a very large catch radius, and when he catches it, he can usually make the second connective read out of it. This is why Isaiah Hartenstein and Ivica Zubac are worth what they're worth, even though they're not necessarily flashy or they don't put up 20 and 20 or 25 and 15. Like those centers, obviously, in this CBA are going to go for maxes and super maxes. But when you're talking about the rationale of bringing in Kawhi, this has to be the reason. He fits your blueprint to a T. He fits how you play basketball. You don't need him to be some amazing passer. And frankly, I think Darko can make him a better passer. I really do. I think Darko can improve his passing ability. But realistically, you don't need that from him. What you need him to do is finish plays. What you need him to do is fit in to a system that's going to allow him to score the 30 easiest points of his life. The Raptors for years have been rocking shot quality. Do you know a couple of years ago when they were like 30th, sorry, when they were 30th in the league and like, or 28th in the league in offensive efficiency. Do you know they were still top 5 in shot quality? The Raptors play design, offensive scripts, structure, pace, IQ is very good. When you put really smart players around really good players, the outcomes are usually pretty much inevitable. And that's what Kawhi Leonard would do to the Raptors. He would immediately vault them over, in my opinion. He would vault them into the Knicks territory of contender status. Tell me right now, the Toronto Raptors walk into the playoffs with Kawhi Leonard and Scotty Barnes, and the Knicks walk in as defending champions in the first round or second round with Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns. Who are you picking in that series? I'm picking the Raptors. I'm going to pick the Raptors. You know why? Because Scotty Barnes and Kawhi Leonard have a really good chance, especially because I know that Scotty would absolutely aggressively be motivated to play on a team with a real championship number one. Like he would boost his development. He would probably take his development into overdrive. Scotty might be like I know Scotty's going to work hard this summer, but if you trade for Kawhi, oh my God. And now let's talk about the fact that just because RJ Barrett is still on this team doesn't mean that he can't be explored for other pieces. Of course he can. So look, the Raptors here's what we know so far. Here's what I know, and here's what is confirmed. What is confirmed is Kawhi Leonard wants an extension. He is not happy if he's walking into next season without an extension. That's one thing we know. Number two, the Toronto Raptors are very interested in getting back into the Kawhi Leonard business. We know this because it is confirmed, because there are reports, because I've heard it, and because we have confirmed reports that they were after Derek White and Jaren Jackson. And basically, Kawhi Leonard is a much, much, much better player, but he fits the same model of great two-way players who can shoot and have good hands and create massive advantages for your possession battle. You want to talk about Jaren Jackson and Derek White, talk about possessions. Talk about possessions. I need you to think about basketball in terms of possessions right now, because that's the way the Raptors are thinking about it. Whether you think that kills your joy or you think like Jaylen Brown, like this is too analytical for me. No, it's not analytical. This is the way basketball is played. The way basketball is played is 520 possessions and you have 100 possessions and I'm not completely bullshit bad at basketball. I'm going to win that game. So this is how basketball is being played on every single level, from EuroLeague to Division 1 to the NBA. Teams are honed in on which players maximize my number and quality of possessions. Kawhi Leonard is a possession cheat code. So, numero uno, right? We know that he wants an extension. Number two, we know that he would sign an extension with the Toronto Raptors if the reporting from Stein and Fisher is correct, and I have no reason to doubt it. We know that he would sign an extension to come here. Number three, we know that the Raptors pursue players like Kawhi, and that Kawhi himself is the epitome of every single player they have pursued over the last 3 years. Think about the players they pursued: Ingram, White, Jackson, Markkanen. This is what you've been after. Kawhi Leonard is the golden goose of what you've been after. He's a little old, sure, but you're trusting that he's going to age well. Okay? Number four, the Raptors are willing to give Kawhi what he wants, which is his extension. They're willing to give him his extension. They're willing to play ball. Number five, Kawhi Leonard historically has wanted stability, trust, and winning. The Raptors give him all of those things. Number six, Kawhi is letting it be known through his camp, throughout the NBA, that he is not willing to sign an extension if some other team jumps the line and trades for him. Number seven, we know that there is a pending aspire, Ballmer investigation from the league. And that, number eight, that the current commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, has been comparatively very lenient on his billionaire owners. All of this information. And number nine, we know that the Raptors love really good hands and the possession battle. if we consider all of the elements of this story, consider all of the moving pieces, the result is that one of the following three things will likely happen. Number one, the Clippers will cave because the league does not put pressure on them, because the results of the investigation are somehow favorable, which I don't know how they would be. And Kawhi gets his cushy 5-year extension from the Clippers, and he stays there until he retires or until he demands out and a team trades for him in a couple of years. I would put the likelihood of that happening at about 50%. Let's go with the 10% outcome that another team that does not secure the extension decides Kawhi Leonard is good enough to roll the dice, and they'll try to do what the Raptors couldn't do, which is woo Kawhi and convince Kawhi to stay. Teams in this mold, I think there are two: the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. Okay. There is a third door in which, and again, this is a 10% thing, another 10% outcome, that an extension is not done. Kawhi is not happy, and he decides to drag this. And the Clippers decide to drag this, and the league decides to drag this. And we're sitting there in February wondering, is Kawhi going to leave in free agency next year? Let's put the outcome of that at 15%. So we've got 50, 10, and 15. That leaves a 25% pie. I'm going to say 5% is some team that we're not thinking about, like Miami or Boston, decides to jump into this and just trade for him. And now I'll give you my favorite outcome, which is the 20% outcome, which is the Toronto Raptors actually get this done this weekend or this week or in 20 minutes. And they ship Brandon Ingram, a couple of picks, Grady Dick, maybe something else, maybe a Jacoby Walter. I would hate it, but man, I would be sick. And they get their guy. Or the league applies some pressure and they have to take a low ball offer of just Brandon Ingram and one pick. And the league says, hey, that was their player. You stole him. That's the tampering. Do you remember the video that I did on the Aspiration Inquisition from Pablo Torre? Do you remember that video? And I said, the league needs to pay the Raptors back for this. Do you remember me saying that? Do you remember that video? There was like 10,000 views on that video. And I said, the one thing that the NBA absolutely needs to do is to realize that only one team was really directly impacted by this fraudulent activity by the Clippers, and that was the Toronto Raptors. They need to pay the Raptors back for this somehow, either through fudging draft luck, which, shout out to the league. We fell both years. We lost our pick to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then we, fell 2 spots in the Colin Murray-Boyles draft. So, that did not happen. We were not gifted Victor Wembanyama for our pain and trouble. We actually got Grady Dick. So I think at this point, when this investigation came out, my first immediate thought was the Raptors got screwed. How will they make it up to the Raptors? Forcing the Clippers to trade Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors, provided Kawhi already wants to go to the Raptors, and Adam Silver saying, let's play this out. Let me mafioso this. This is the consequence of growing up with growing up in Italy for a bit and learning obnoxiously too much about how the mob works and applies pressure. So let's say Adam Silver walks into Steve Ballmer's office. He calls Steve Ballmer into his office like he's a little child, like he's a little child. He says, I know you're a multi-billionaire and business magnate and CEO with Microsoft out there, but in here, you're my bitch. Sit down. And so he says to him, listen, in one hand, I have a file. And in this file are the results of the league's year-long probe into the Clippers tampering allegations. In this hand, I have another file. And this file tells you what I want you to do for me if you don't want me to look at this file. You get it? Right-hand file. You want to roll the dice and play Russian roulette with what our league investigation found about tampering and deal with the consequences of that, or take my instructions in the other file and this file goes away. This is absolutely how a league that is not public would operate. The NBA is not public. It's not a public company. They can do whatever the fuck they want. I don't think people realize that. Like the commissioner has like an unbelievable amount of control in a situation like this. Unbelievable. Now, the charges from the US government are absolutely independent of this, and that is something completely different. If the US government decides to file fraud charges with the SEC and what Kawhi Leonard did and the no-show app, that is a separate issue, and Kawhi will deal with that in court. Okay. And his uncle Dennis will deal with that in court. The Clippers will deal with that in court. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the league action. We're talking about David Stern fining, the Minnesota Timberwolves 5 draft picks. That. If I'm Steve Ballmer, as ballsy as he is, I'm probably just taking the instruction. You know what the instruction says? He opens up, he sits in his limo, he gets his pizza a la Kevin McAllister, in Lost, in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Good day, sir. He breathes a sigh of relief. Okay, that file's gone away. Now let's see what Big Daddy Silver wants me to do. And he opens it up, and it's a picture, and it has a trade. And the trade says, Kawhi Leonard goes to Toronto. Brandon Ingram goes to LA with 1 first-round pick. Nobody will bat an eye on this. Everyone will say, oh, the Clippers got hoodwinked. The Clippers got fleeced. I can't believe the Clippers, blah, 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 blah. Dude, one day before, and y'all can verify this. There's like video evidence of this on this channel and on Player's Choice. 2 days before Luka Doncic got traded, I had been hearing rumblings for like a year and a half that eventually Luka's representation and the NBA in general wanted to push him towards LA. Didn't know when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen. So we were having a discussion on the Friday before it broke. I think on Thursday before it broke. If you guys remember, give me a W if you remember this clip. And we started talking about Luka leaving Dallas randomly. It wasn't like reports were out or anything. He's being shopped. This was just a random thought. And Swipe is like, oh, I know exactly where he's going to go. He's going to go to Chicago because they have this huge Serbian population. Y'all remember. Shout outs to you guys. And I cut him off. And I said, he doesn't care about the Serbian population. He's going to LA. Los Angeles. Lakers. 2 days later, it happens. Goes to the Lakers in a way that I did not imagine it happening. I thought eventually he would push his way out. And of course, there's a cover up around it. And it's like, oh, like Luka was blindsided. Luka didn't know. LeBron didn't know. Nobody knew, apparently. Only Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison knew. Okay, man. But you trade a star that big to the biggest market and there's no pre-existing relationship between Luka and the Lakers. Please. The Lakers always have to have a star. And that's what happened. The Lakers got their star because LeBron wasn't going to be it and AD wasn't going to be it. And the league kept their star there. If you don't believe that major sports leagues work like this to some extent, you're not really paying attention. I'm not necessarily even a conspiratorial person. Believe me. I do not think 9/11 was an inside job or anything like that. I'm not somebody who, I'm not usually someone who believes in conspiracies, nor am I a very highly conspiratorial person. However, when it comes to business, I mean, shit, I've worked for enough companies to know that when people aren't being held accountable, people do wild things to serve their self-interest. And, that's just what it is. Kawhi Leonard being in a Clippers uniform is bad for business. It's bad for everybody. If they're also not willing to pay him, and Toronto is willing to pay him, and Toronto was the team that got shafted in the first place, then the best thing for business is the kumbaya ending that Toronto gets Kawhi Leonard back. And oh, by the way, because you tampered, the 3 picks you're being docked are the 3 picks that the Toronto Raptors don't have to give you. Therefore, the league does not have to admit that this horrible thing happened because the whole thing just kind of goes away. See what I mean? It just kind of goes away. The Raptors don't have to give up the 3 picks. The league does not have to find the Clippers 3 picks. It's just kind of an unwritten part of the deal. That's how I would see it. Now, again, 20% is not a high amount. 20% is 1 in 5. It's a 1 in 5 chance that I think this should happen. But it's worth noting the Raptors are exploring this for a reason. The Raptors would never explore this if the extension was not on the table. Can I be clear about that? There's zero chance. Zero. Unless it's for Ingram straight up, there's zero chance that the Raptors are giving up anything of substance for a Kawhi rental again. One, they're not in a contention window right now. Scotty Barnes is young enough. They don't have to do this. This is not, oh, it's the final year of Kawhi, Kyle Lowry, and we have to go for it. No, you're nowhere near it. You're on the way up. You don't have to trade for a 35-year-old to contend in a bloated East right now because you're on your way up. You don't rent Kawhi. Nobody is renting Kawhi here. No, the Raptors. I don't know about nobody. Houston might want to rent Kawhi. Miami might want to rent Kawhi. Shit. Golden State might be jumping over themselves to rent Kawhi. The Toronto Raptors will not rent Kawhi. So the very idea that a discussion took place this morning or last night between the Toronto Raptors and the LA Clippers centered on Kawhi Leonard for Brandon Ingram and stuff. Stuff has not yet been revealed. It will probably be revealed soon. The very fact that that has happened means that, one, the Clippers are open to moving him. Number two, the Raptors are open to acquiring him. And number three, Kawhi has given his blessing and has promised to sign an extension. This is real. This is not leverage. This is not bullshit. You don't have negotiations on leverage. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. So at some point, obviously, it would be tampering if the Raptors just phoned up Kawhi and said, how do you feel about this? But there are ways for information to get around. There's always ways for information to get around. Kawhi can leak it through a certain channel, gets back to the Raptors. The Raptors call the Clippers. They say, hey, a little birdie told us that y'all are looking to potentially move Kawhi because you can't come to terms. And a little birdie told us that also, by the way, he's open to sign an extension. All Kawhi had to do would be say, I'm open to sign an extension with anyone. And this whole thing goes away. The fact that he's willing to sign an extension with the Raptors should be, you know what? Maybe it's a little bit of catharsis. For a Raptor fan, I always wondered about Steve Francis and Vancouver. I always wondered if even 25 years later, 27 years later, if there's some fan in Vancouver staring up at the sky saying, if only that guy wanted to be in Vancouver, we might have still kept our team. I wonder if some Raptor fans have been staring at the sky for 7 or 8 years saying, amidst the Fred VanVleet, the embarrassing Chicago Bulls, the embarrassing bubble, situation with Siakam, the Chicago Bulls beating us because a little girl screamed so loud we couldn't hit our free throws, the tear down, the tank, the failed tank, not tanking for Wemby, going in the play-in, losing, drafting Grady Dick. I wonder, through all of the ups and downs with Scotty Barnes, I wonder if there's some fan out there who's just standing at the sky saying, if only this guy had chosen us instead of the Clippers, we might have won 3 championships. I wonder how many of you feel that way. Like this video if you feel that way. I wonder if how many of you felt and truly believed the American narrative that Kawhi didn't like Canada. I wonder how many of you would change your mind in a very significant way if he pushed his way to Canada. I wonder how many of you would have a healing of catharsis and feeling like he didn't like it here. That's never been confirmed. Ever. Ever. You know who didn't like it here? The people who talk shit about this place when they leave. You know who loved it here? Vince. Vince loved Canada. He's never missed an opportunity to give Canada and Toronto its flowers. He's not sucking up to Toronto because he was saying he loved Toronto when Toronto was hating on him, booing him. That's those tears, when he came back with the Memphis Grizzlies and he started crying when the Raptor fans finally rooted for him and cheered for him. Those were real tears. Those were not crocodile tears because he felt, as his mom did, as people in his camp felt, that Raptor fans finally acknowledged that he loved them. And the jersey retirement, the viral moments, the opening of the court, all of this is meant to be catharsis. Well, you achieved catharsis with the biggest name in franchise history. Now It's time to achieve perhaps some catharsis with the best player in your franchise's history, and that's Kawhi Leonard. I wonder if the actually, I am now wondering if the Los Angeles the Los Angeles Clippers could involve the Boston Celtics into this deal and make it a 4-team deal. I also wonder if like Jalen Brown would be involved in that deal. I had an idea for a framework between the Pelicans, the Nuggets, and the Raptors this morning, in which RJ Barrett would go to the Pelicans, Christian Brown and Herb Jones would come to the Raptors, and Grady Dick, Jordan Hawkins would go to the Denver Nuggets, and a first round pick from the Nuggets would come to the Raptors in exchange for taking on the Christian Brown contract. Of course, that's not sexy, right? How do I feel about Ja? I feel like Ja Morant is being blackballed right now, but he's not a good fit for this roster. So two things are true. I don't think he's as bad as people are saying he is. I don't think he's some head case lunatic. I talked to somebody who played with Ja Morant like 3 years ago and he said it was the best teammate he's ever played with, the nicest guy. But the way the media represents Ja is like he's just a bad dude, and I don't think that that's true. But he divorced himself from the system. He's obviously snubbed his nose at the league by continuing to do the gun emotions and the cellies with the grenade stuff. But he also fired his representation, and now he's represented by his uncle and his dad. And when you take I'm gonna say something kind of controversial here. Please don't fry me too badly for it. But when you take the white hand out of your pocket, it tends to strangle you. Does that make sense? When you decide that you are not going to be represented by one of the main agencies, those agencies try to destroy you because your example of, hey, if I have an uncle who's literate, I can keep this money in my pocket and I can keep, 5%, 10% of my money in my family. You are setting a very dangerous precedent because the agencies exist precisely because they exist on the idea that they are necessary. And when a player does well without representation, it threatens the representation completely. So Ja Morant, Jalen Brown, not only are both men unapologetically very black, they are also very unapologetically independent. So is Kyrie Irving, although I don't know about his representation situation. Miles Bridges trade thoughts. I think it's a very nice indication of what RJ Barrett's trade value is going to be. Oak Tree saying Lamar Jackson did it, kept his $50 million per in his family. Love it. Absolutely. Larry Legend. When was the last time giving up 3 first-round picks worked out? Nobody said give up 3 first-round picks for Kawhi. I think maybe the New York Knicks would tell you it worked out because it resulted in a championship with Mikal Bridges. I don't know. When has giving up 3 first-round picks worked out? I am thinking. I know it has worked out. I'm positive it has worked out. I just can't remember when. But no, it's usually not a great idea. There you go. That makes sense. So there you have it. Kyrie Irving. How would you guys feel about Jonathan Isaac on the Toronto Raptors? He was waived by the Orlando Magic. I think he's still one of the best defenders in the league. I think Jonathan Isaac would be fantastic. I know a lot of people don't like Jonathan Isaac. I understand that. I had to research why today. But my only impression of Jonathan Isaac is meeting the guy once, and really he's just such a great dude. And I know someone who covered him like a lot, like as a beat reporter, and he always said like he was the nicest guy. So my impressions of Jonathan Isaac are not his Ben Shapiro appearance or, anything that I've heard from him about politics or the all lives matter stuff, Black Lives Matter. I am not like I don't think people are their politics. Does that make sense? I'm not going to sit here and be like you're a bad person because you're conservative. I genuinely think that's a separate issue. I may not be agreeing with your issue. And just like I don't think people are bad because they're religious. That to me is crazy. Can Mr. Isaac play center? If not, I don't know. Yes, absolutely, he can play center. He is almost a legit 7 feet tall with a 7'1" wingspan. He's very strong. Yes. Do you think Biddle will play significant minutes? No, I don't. I think Nate Biddle will be very lucky to survive camp. But I do think I appreciate the quality of decisions the Toronto Raptors made. I'm not standing here and telling you all of them will work out. Jaden Ivey is a good idea. Nate Biddle is a good idea. Alan Graves is a great idea. That's not a guarantee that these are going to work out. What I will tell you, though, and this is like something that, I was talking to a trainer this morning, and we were talking. He trains one of the Toronto Raptors. No, not that Toronto Raptor, another Toronto Raptor. And we were talking, and no, not that Toronto Raptor either, another Toronto Raptor. So I'm saying no, not Jacoby's trainer, no, not Scotty's trainer, but another trainer. And we were talking about like one of the reels that I posted on IG, which is about how Greg Popovich looked for guys who had empathetic joy and how that was like a precursor for success, winning. And basically, it was one of those things that the Spurs used internally. What they would do is they would scout games and they would study players when they were on the bench and see how locked in they were on their teammates and how proudly they celebrated their success. They would also look at players in bad situations like team is down 25 and see if they still competed. But the empathetic joy part is a very important thing. How much joy do you experience from somebody else being successful when that success does not in any way meaningfully, tangibly impact you? An example would include your teammate got a really big extension. Your teammate had a really big scoring game, even though you had a bad scoring game. Your teammate got a really big extension when you were up for an extension, and it's very likely that the extension that he got is probably going to squeeze the extension you would have gotten. Are you still happy? Most people can be happy for other people, provided it doesn't threaten something that they value. So I'm happy that you found $200, provided that the $200 you found was not outside my apartment where I go every day, right? So this is the point. When you can experience empathetic joy for others, I think that that is a really good precursor. And I think that is a really good hallmark for success. The other thing that I think is a really good hallmark for success is humility and gratitude. I think these are things that people don't think about very much, but I think about them a lot. And I've been around a lot of people in my life that maybe had a lot of talent, a lot of skill, a lot of height, for sports. They didn't have a lot of gratitude. They didn't have a very big appreciation for things. When Alan Graves was drafted, he said, y'all not going to be disappointed in me, not going to get any problems from me. His immediate thought process was to pay gratitude to the team that took a chance on him. Scotty Barnes was actually a very similar story. When the Raptors took Scotty 4th overall, there was a similar expression of like, I'm not going to let y'all regret it. Y'all are going to be happy you took me, etc. It's the same idea. So you look at those little things with players. If you look at Alan Graves' timeline, he's basically all about everybody else. He's posting former friends, teammates, getting extensions, getting two ways. He's not really, posting about himself, right? That shows me a tremendous amount of empathetic joy. And it's pretty much a precursor for any player that I'm going to support is a player that can be happy for other people. It's important. And I think it's like when you look at Jose Alvarado, right? That is like he's a walking embodiment of like empathetic joy. He could not play, but he's still giving notes to the guy who's playing ahead of him. If he's not playing and Jeremiah Fears took a spot, he's not sabotaging Jeremiah Fears. He's actually helping Jeremiah Fears because he's happy for Jeremiah Fears because he's been there, but it's not impacting him in any way. He's taking his spot. He's taking his minutes. See, Fred VanVleet was not like that. That's why I did not like Fred VanVleet. Y'all understand me a little bit? Clippers insider said it would take 3 firsts and CMB. Well, Clippers insider can go fuck himself because the Clippers fans right now on my timeline and in my messages are flaming me because I've been very loud that this is real for like 3 days, 4 days now. They're very upset. They think they're going to get CMB. They think they're going to get 4 first-round picks. They think they're crazy. First of all, yes, Kawhi Leonard is that level of talent for sure, but he's not that level of asset. Okay. Internally, if Kawhi Leonard, like, let's just assume one part of this story is wrong. Let's say privately, Kawhi Leonard, the whole reporting was initially the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard would prefer to stay with the Clippers. The Clippers would prefer to keep Kawhi Leonard. But there are 2 teams. If a deal cannot be worked out, the very idea that there are 2 teams, first of all, is wrong. It's one team. But the very fact that one team he would sign an extension with absolutely indicates that something is not right where he is right now. You've never heard, Scotty Barnes would prefer to stay in Toronto, but if something can't be done, he'd prefer to go to Boston. That's never, you know what I mean? Like, this type of reporting is dangerous because it assumes a lot. And the number one thing that I think is assuming incorrectly is that he really wants to be a Clipper right now. I don't know if he wants to be a Clipper. I'm sure he would love to stay in LA, but I don't think he wants to be a Clipper. Consider the reasonings. Traded away his veterans, added a whole bunch of young guys, traded away his center, didn't pay his co-star, traded away his second co-star, who was playing amazing, by the way. Harden was having an amazing season and went on to have an amazing season, went a lot further than the Clippers in the playoffs. Traded away starting center, drafted a really young kid, 5th overall, instead of trading down for Axel Landerberg and stuff. Right? I'm sorry. Like, threw him under the bus with the Aspire investigation. Right? So, look, these things can happen really fast. If it happens, I'm going to keep my phone on all night. If this happens tonight, I don't care if it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I'm popping on for a live. If this happens late at night, I think the Kawhi trade broke late at night, early morning. Who knows? Maybe this could happen again. But I am locked in. I want this to happen very badly because I don't think the Raptors are going to have to give up CMB. I would be pissed. I would actually be pissed. I'm actually going to give this grade. I would give this trade a C- if they give up CMB. I might even give it a D+. That would be legitimately stupid. Colin Murray-Boyles has a very good chance to be a top 5 player from last year's draft class. That would be really dumb. I've heard some people say that they would throw Colin Murray-Boyles into this deal. Give me some of that crack you're smoking because you're crazy. No way. No. He's an expiring contract. The Clippers do not hold the cards here. He is not a restricted free agent. He can walk for nothing. If Kawhi Leonard, look, to me, Kawhi is like, I already mentioned this. Kawhi is a trust guy, okay? When he's already lined up options for life after LA, trust me, bro, his brain is like, give me what I want or I'm gone. They don't have leverage here. So either pay him the absolute maximum at the maximum term, which clearly the Clippers have shown. Paul George was willing to negotiate. They were not. They did not budge. He wanted every dime that Kawhi had, and they said no. I think the Clippers have already tipped their hand here. They've gone super young. I don't think that they're building a team. Look, there's no leverage here. There's no leverage here. They don't have the leverage. He has the leverage. With 1 year left on his deal, just like Giannis did, where Giannis chose his destinations. When's the last time? I mean, reminder, scroll it back. Pascal Siakam. The Toronto Raptors wanted to send Pascal Siakam to Atlanta. He said no. The Toronto Raptors wanted to send Pascal to Sacramento. He said no. I'm not going to Sacramento. I don't want to be in Sacramento. So the Raptors had to do what? They had to trade Pascal Siakam to the one place he agreed to sign an extension, which is the Indiana Pacers. The Raptors probably could have gotten a lot more from the Pelicans for OG Anunoby, maybe even from the Lakers or from the Clippers or whoever. Certainly, RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley was not the maximum offer. But OG Anunoby decided he wanted to be a Knick. And that was the one place where he really wanted to be. And his agency pushed him there. So you look at this over and over. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he narrowed himself down to two teams. Those were the two teams that were in the bidding. The Raptors couldn't get into this because he's not going to sign an extension. Now, Giannis has 2 years left on his deal. Kawhi has 1. Look, he holds the cards. That's what nobody understands here. If the Clippers want to play hardball, they can. It's only going to piss him off. Look, Kawhi's made it known. I'm not going into next year without a contract. Give me my contract. You don't want to give me my contract. Now I'm pissed. I might just shut myself down for the year or trade me to a team that's going to give me that contract. The Raptors will. It's very clear. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be like arrogant or something. I've only talked to 2 people who would even be remotely plugged into this, and I've read everything about this, and I'm trying to put together the tea leaves. I don't have like a direct line to the parties involved. Somebody actually hit me up. I think Nolan hit me up the other day. He's like, "Hey, Rob, can you tell me it was something about the source you have in the Raptors?" I don't have a source with the Raptors, bro. I do not have a source with the Raptors. I have a source right outside the Raptors, right outside that circle. And that's very helpful for me because it's led me wrong one time in my life. Just once. Okay? So I believe that the Raptors' interest in Kawhi is real. I believe Kawhi's interest in Toronto is real. If Jake Fisher is to be believed, the negotiations are happening right now. And there's been no follow-up report that negotiations have ended. Are negotiations held up on the inclusion of CMB or not CMB? Probably, possibly. But the Raptors are not in an impulsive need to make this deal. This is not 2019. This is not 2020. The Raptors don't need to make this deal. It'd be great to make this deal. And Bobby, may not have negotiated well with the Spurs. He's been proven to be bested by that front office way too many times. Obviously, a first-round pick is going into this trade. You know that. If you traded a first-round pick for Thaddeus Young, you traded a first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl, 2 first-round picks, you're obviously going to trade at least a pick and a swap for Kawhi, if not 2 straight up. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2027 and 2029. That we are now extending to the maximum offer that I would give up for Kawhi is Ingram, Grady, and 2 first-round picks. That is my final offer. And I'm walking away after that. I know some people would say, okay, well, what about Ingram, Jacoby, Jamal Shed, and a pick? Well, now we really are struggling to rebuild depth. And while the Raptors may not necessarily be a conventional championship favorite, they are a dark horse championship contender in the Eastern Conference, provided they don't lose their depth in this piece. The minute you trade Colin Murray-Boyles, in my opinion, you trade your best bench player. That changes your equation completely. Completely. Now, it's possible also that the Raptors are trying very desperately to find a way to get Jakob Poeltl into this deal as well and take back Brook Lopez, at which point the price of 2 picks and a swap might be more justified. I still don't think Colin Murray-Boyles is justified in anything. I think, to me, Scotty Barnes and Colin Murray-Boyles are non-starters. Jacoby would be you get no picks. If Jacoby is involved, you get no picks. And I don't think they value him highly enough to do that. I'd be really pissed if we traded any of those 3. Anything outside those 3, quite frankly, I'm not that mad. If you get Kawhi Leonard, you'll rebuild the depth. There's plenty of minimum contract guys to fill out your roster. Veterans, you're not going to have Jonathan Mobo and Trace Jackson Davis on this team. You'll probably decline the option on both, and you get veterans for those positions. And I trust Darko to make it work, man. I trust him to make it work. I would not take Brook Lopez. He's too old now. He's also cheap. He's also experienced, and he can also shoot for a 15-minute a night center. Unless, of course, you think you want to roll the dice with backup. Wow. Did I just come up with the greatest Jakob Poeltl name by accident? Backup Poeltl. Backup Poeltl. Backup Pirtle. Jesus. Okay. If you want to roll the dice for 3.5, 4 more years of Jakob Pirtle, you go right ahead. But next year that contract extension kicks in, it's bad. Like, Lopez is limited. He's a drop big. But Jakob Pirtle is pretty much a drop big at this point too. He's not very switchable either. And, if we're just talking like straight up 15 minutes a night, Colin Murray-Boyles can play another 20 minutes at center, maybe 15 minutes at power forward. Alan Graves can plug in there. You find a veteran minimum guy that can plug in there. Jakob Pirtle becomes more of a ceremonial starter. It works. It works. And I mean, now your ability to get depth in the second round, like Jaden Bradley, now really makes sense, right? You wouldn't want Miles Turner instead of Lopez. Well, that's the second part of this, right? So if you keep RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Jacoby Walters, CMB, most of your future picks, I think there's probably a reason to believe that you would not be done. Because obviously, like, your roster would be very incomplete. You'd have Kawhi at the 3, Jacoby at the 2, Emmanuel at the 1, Scotty at the 4, again, unfortunately. And then you would have Jakob Pirtle at the 5. I think this would be a really good time to explore potentially a Jakob Pirtle plus RJ Barrett plus picks for massive upgrades elsewhere on your roster. Like hypothetically, would this roster not make sense? Would you do Kyle Kuzma, Miles Turner, and Jaime Jaquez? Something like that? No, I don't think Jaquez would work. Hold on, pull up the trade machine. You wouldn't exactly. Let me assume, okay, that Kawhi Leonard is on this team and Grady Dick and okay, let's just see what this might look like. So in this scenario, we're assuming that Kawhi Leonard is already on this team, that Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick and picks were the thing that went out. Unfortunately, the trade has not been finalized yet, so I can't even make the trade yet. But essentially, the framework would be 1 and 2 to Milwaukee for 1 and 2. Something like that. You get a little bit more shooting, a little bit more front court depth. You get a slightly less horrible contract. They get the much better player. Does it work? Would you do it? I think it's viable. The other deal I was thinking about was this. Now, this is independent of the Kawhi Leonard stuff, but this was the deal. So, hold on. First, let's just do the Kawhi Leonard trade. Make myself kind of small here. And okay, let's pull this up. So, the deal as I would structure it would be this. And you would be trading 2027 top 4 protected, 2029 I would say top 8 protected, or actually remove 2028 swap. There we go. And the Clippers in turn would just give you Kawhi Leonard straight up. That would be my deal. This right here. How does it help the Toronto Raptors or hurt the Toronto Raptors? Well, it pretty much takes away your ability to re-sign Mamu completely. Not that you had much of a chance of re-signing Mamu. Now, if you expand this deal, that's when I think we can actually include, like, okay, first of all, so we exercise Brook Lopez is expiring, $9 million. And then Toronto in turn would add Jakob Pirtle instead of Grady Dick. So you do this trade, right? It's a dead even match. Oh my goodness. That doesn't do anything. Okay, we got to send Grady. We got to send Grady. So now it works, but the Raptors have the money to sign Mamu. So now the Toronto Raptors might actually have to give up that third pick as well. So therein lies the 2 picks plus a swamp. I can stomach this. This I can do because it gets you off the Jakob Poeltl money, which would have probably cost you a first round pick anyway. This is not fun to lose this many of your picks. I'm going to just say that outright. It's not fun, but you are getting off a dead weight salary in Grady Dick, a bad contract in Jakob Poeltl, and and not a great contract either in Brandon Ingram. And by the way, you're playing Russian roulette with Brandon Ingram because he has a player option next year. So I don't think this is a bad deal. So you get this deal done. So this becomes, let's call it deal number 1. And then you follow it up with deal number 2, right? Which is, so just remember the first deal. I'll scroll back to it. And then deal number 2, hypothetically, let's just select new teams. What do we need here? Can y'all tell me, like, what's the biggest need of this team? So if this team exists like this, your roster looks like Emmanuel Quickley. So at point guard, you have Emmanuel Quickley, Jamal Shedd, Jaden Bradley, Chucky Hepburn, or Elijah Martin at point. At 2, you have Jacoby Walter and not much else, right? At 3, you have Kawhi Leonard. And once again, not really much else, but you do have the versatility of Scotty Barnes. Jamison Battle, right? Someone said Kessler. You need a Powell. I don't think you have oh my goodness, Bradley Beal. Yeah, that worked out so well the first time. Give me targets, man. Oh shit, I forgot about RJ Barrett. That's the point. So obviously in the next deal, RJ Barrett is going. Okay. So now, factoring in this deal, let's make the second deal. So the second deal is an RJ deal. It's to optimize a few things, but let's see if we can get it done with the Nuggets. No, I don't think you can get it done with the Nuggets because in this case, you would be getting worse, not better. Okay, so I want a wing who can score off of Kawhi, but also space for Scotty. I don't think Jamal Murray is the answer. No. Let's get Cason Wallace. Yeah, Cason Wallace would be a dream come true, dude, but I don't think they're giving him up for less than 3 first-round picks. Cason is the guy I would give up 3 first-round picks for in a heartbeat. Now, this might be a little crazy, but would y'all do this? Hang on. Let's try this out. Would y'all do this? It's a little bit crazy, but bear with me for a second. Would y'all do this? Would you trade Drew Holiday for Emmanuel Quickley straight up? They get younger. They get a better shooter. You get older. No? No? Yes? It was just an idea. Okay. Let's move this off. So again, assuming we now have Brook Lopez and Kawhi Leonard on this team, and we have a little bit of space, we can't kill that space. So any move that we have, we're going to try to take back less money. Let's go through our options. Jazz, probably not. Spurs, no, unless you're taking De'Aaron Fox. Kings, viable. Thunder, the Thunder are a possibility, but the 2 teams have the exact same goal, which is to shed salary. So I don't think it's going to work. Because obviously, like, if you had salary, you could take Topic, Wiggins, Wait, Aaron Wiggins already got traded. Okay, Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are probably going to be your biggest competition for Mamu. Warriors, RJ Barrett fit? Nope. Lakers, RJ Barrett fit? Nope. Rockets, RJ Barrett fit? Nope. Mavericks, yeah. I always end up defaulting to the Mavericks trade. Okay. So what you would do, again, imagine Kawhi is here. Is you would then trade RJ Barrett for Daniel Gafford and Najee Marshall. And in this situation, you would take back the 3 of the 7 million that you saved. So it gives the Mavericks a little bit of savings here. And this is, of course, you taking on an extra deal of extra year of Daniel Gafford. Can this deal be done straight up? Would they value RJ Barrett enough there next to Cooper Flag? I'm not sure. I don't think the value on this feels fair because Najee Marshall is an awesome contract, even though he's expiring. And I guess this would really hinge on the Mavericks want to move off of Daniel Gafford's contract. Yeah, that ain't working. Scoot Henderson played himself well out of RJ Barrett talks last year. But if it's not the Dallas Mavericks for that deal, then you could expand the deal, right? And you can make it for Kyrie. I don't want to keep mocking Kyrie to the Raptors because I don't think it necessarily is going to happen. And it would also require Kyrie is such a huge star. It would require his representation to kind of sign off on it. The Chicago Bulls are possible, but again, everything they're trying to do right now is take okay. Let's get nuts. Would you do this? Now, again, this is really factoring in you already have Kawhi Leonard and Scotty Barnes. How many picks are you adding to this to make this work? I mean, honestly, you're adding every pick you have left, and they still might say no. I don't think that RJ Barrett has that kind of value, but if the I mean, imagine the team, right? You're talking about Jamal Shed running point, Jaylen Brown, Scotty Barnes, Kawhi Leonard, and I don't know, like nothing else, and your whole bunch of rookies. The star talent would be insane. Your ticket prices would be 2 times no or 2 times up. I still think the Celtics definitely say no, unless they're super desperate to move off of Jaylen Brown. Again, there's a lot of stuff right now coming out that the offers for Jaylen Brown are just not too high. And I'm not sure if that's true. I'm really not, because I'm not in the Celtics front office. I have no idea if the offers are really that low. Yeah, it's hard to find a deal that really needs RJ Barrett. That's actually his whole market. And this is why, like, when people say like, oh, the Raptors need to, do this deal with RJ Barrett, you're in such a weird place with RJ because he thinks he's worth one thing. You think he's worth something else. The two sides are pretty far off in terms of valuation. I promise you that is one thing that has held up this extension for 2 years now. Because if they like really valued him at 35 million, they would have paid him last summer. They didn't. They chose instead to extend other guys. They gave Brandon Ingram the money. They gave Quickly the money. They haven't given RJ the money because they don't think he's worth 35. Now, they might see him as extension eligible if he's the finishing piece to a Kawhi puzzle. But as it stands right now, I don't see it. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to say, overall, this Kawhi stuff, it's got legs. However you want to say it, like, oh, it's not going to happen, it might happen, it might not happen. I genuinely think that if it is going to happen, it's going to happen pretty soon, right? Would you go get Cam Johnson? Cam is awesome, but Cam has a lot of injury concerns as well. You can send RJ to Texas, no state taxes, and he can take a reasonable deal. Well, can you please name me the team in Texas that wants him? Masai has interest in Kawhi too, just got announced. Yes, my friend, everyone has interest in Kawhi. It doesn't matter if you have interest in Kawhi. It's does Kawhi have interest in you? Now, I can see Dallas and Houston being like outside of the box thoughts, but Dallas is also nowhere close to contending. It would. No, the Guangdong Tigers definitely do want RJ Barrett. He would sell a lot of tickets. Where would you rank us with Kawhi in the East? Second or third? Easily. And if you fill out the roster with like other really good shooters, I could see as high as one. RJ for Fox. Um, so De'Aaron Fox makes $50 million annually. That does not work. Knicks and Celtics are over us, I assume. Yeah. No. Um, I guess it depends. Like the Celtics probably are, but if the Celtics trade Jalen Brown for a pick heavy package, then they may not be either. And honestly, I don't see a Knicks repeat year. I'm not saying what they did was a fluke. They caught lightning in a bottle and they're a great team, but I'm not necessarily scared of that roster if you have Kawhi Leonard and Scotty Barnes. I really think Kawhi and Scotty would be the best duo in the NBA. I would say third. I think Boston edges us out slightly. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. But Derek White's a lot older. Jason Tatum's coming off an Achilles tear. You cannot bet on Jalen Brown is very soured. Look, like what were we saying about Boston before last year started? They'd be lucky to win 42 games. Then they go out and win 60. Suddenly they're a powerhouse. They're a juggernaut. They got bounced in the first round. No, I'm not willing to concede that Boston is definitively better. Obviously, if they make the requisite moves and they smooth over this Jalen Brown situation, or they trade him for a player that's actually an upgrade to Jalen Brown, I'll change my mind. But as of right now, realistically, it's pretty much just the Knicks. Kawhi might go to Dallas. Yo, I was thinking of ways to spin this, and that's a great way to spin it. I was also thinking of ways to spin this as Scotty Barnes is better than Cade Cunningham, and that's someone said Dallas news. Are you just talking about the news that the Dallas Mavericks are interested in Kawhi Leonard? Well, guess what? Hang on. Yes, I do think Kawhi Leonard will get traded. That's my thought. Depressed flame. Wait, what? Are you guys saying like this has happened? Clay, PJ, and Picks. Why are you guys acting like this has happened? Okay. We need to talk about this. First of all, this is bullshit right here. No. Clay, PJ, and Picks. Are y'all insane? Clay and PJ? Those are two bad contracts. Brandon Ingram was an all-star last year. Oh, come on. Y'all are head faking like crazy. He is not going to Dallas. I could see the Dallas portion of this precisely because Kawhi does love to keep his money and he wouldn't have to pay the taxes. I did hear that the taxes were a big, like hindrance for Kawhi Leonard here. Like he didn't love that he had to pay so many taxes. What is going on here? Now this is leverage. Well played, Clippers. What leverage? Dude, unless, I mean, look, Kawhi does have a pre-existing relationship with Masai Ujiri, and if that relationship is strong enough, which I have no reason to believe it's not, then yes, I could see how the Dallas Mavericks might be an outside in this. Again, my thinking on this was um Bobby versus Masai shit just got real. That's actually funny. If Masai Ujiri ends up being the reason that we don't get Kawhi because he outbids us, I'm actually going to be really pissed because he got outbid a million times as a Raptor GM constantly. And now he's going to go and like learn how to do his job? No. Wait, so the trade happened? Not yet. Okay, hold on. I gotta look this up. Mavericks. Who broke it? So first of all, shout outs to Ryan Dickinson. These are the odds for the Kawhi Leonard first regular season minute played to be for which NBA team. The odds for the Raptors are higher than the odds for the Clippers. Do you realize that just 4 days ago, it was like plus 3,000 for the Raptors? The Raptors were where the Philadelphia 76ers are right now. They were like the 7th team. Now they're the first team. Now, again, this could just be because the Toronto media is going crazy about this. I'm going crazy about this. So maybe people are just lining up bets and the betting lines are adjusting. But I just don't think that, I don't think Vegas adjusts it this much because there's nothing there. There's something there for sure. Do you know how rare it is for a team that has the player to have worse odds at keeping the player than the team that's offering for the player? Like that shows okay. So I'm really hoping that Masai Ujiri is not coming in. I really hope Masai Ujiri is not coming in to drive the price up for the Raptors. And I really, really, really do not buy any of these reports that Colin Murray Boyles is I hope that the Raptors, here's what I hope. I hope the Raptors shut that shit down before it even got out of their mouths. I hope that when Lawrence Frank said, how about Colin, right there, just shut up. Unless you're asking about Colin Gillespie or, some other Colin or something like that in a 3-team, don't even utter Murray Boyles out of your fucking mouth. There's not a chance. It's not happening. No, we do not trade a freaking cap sheet cheat code who balled out in the playoffs. I understand. I watched Raptors Republic and Sampson's initial reaction, which he, of course, he retracted it after. He retracted in the comments. But in his initial, in his initial video, he said, yeah, Colin Murray Boyles should be on the table. And then he took it back afterwards. I have no idea why. But the idea here is typically, if Kawhi was in his prime, or when he's 27, 28, this would be a no-brainer. Colin Murray Boyles going the other way, 100%. If Kawhi had 4 years left on his deal, this would be another way. But the Clippers don't have the leverage. So right now, there's no reason to trade Colin Murray Boyles. None. Zilch. That's not to say that I think Colin Murray Boyles is going to be a better player than Kawhi Leonard, because that's the way people always take these fucking conversations to be, But it's just like when I said Scottie Barnes should not be on the table for Kevin Durant or Damian Lillard. It's the same thing. In terms of asset structure and value, you cannot think in terms of who's better. You have to think about in terms of who's more valuable, because that's what you trade. Whenever people dismiss the value of picks, oh, those picks are in grade 6 right now. Yes, but they offer optionality, right? We become no better if CMB is in this trade. You definitely still get better. I just want to be clear about that. Way better, but you still don't do it. Colin Murray Boyles was not an all-star last year. Brandon Ingram was not a top 35 player last year. Kawhi Leonard was a top 7 player last year. So the only way you don't get better is if Kawhi Leonard misses half the season with an injury. If Kawhi Leonard plays, you are way better. Yes, even if you traded Colin Murray Boyles. The reason you don't trade Colin Murray Boyles is he has 3 years left on a rookie deal, and Kawhi has 1 year left before he becomes massively paid. The asset structure is different than the player value. Jaylen Brown is a top 20 player. He is also not a top 60 asset in terms of value, contract, play style, all of it. Okay. So there has to be a distinction. Anyways, guys, we've gone on for this for about 2 hours. There's a lot of waxing poetic about things that are purely theoretical right now, but they are happening behind the scenes. And this is real. It's not leverage. The Raptors are absolutely interested in Kawhi. And if anything happens before I go to sleep, we're going live right away to talk about it. I hope it happens. Someone said, F you, Pen. Why? Why you got to be like that? That's fair. A part of me thinks this is leverage on the Mavericks end, but I also don't. Why is it leverage on the Mavericks end? Yeah, it doesn't always work that way. Random stuff said Dallas is the new favorite. Where are you getting that from? Unless, of course, you live in Dallas and are just being wishful. Dallas is the new favorite. Like, I don't have a betting app, so I can't confirm that. Like, does somebody have access to these betting sites that could tell me, like, is Dallas actually the new favorite? So you're telling me that the Dallas Mavericks, who weren't even on the page here, not even there, they jumped Milwaukee, New York, OKC, Orlando, Phoenix, Portland, Utah, Atlanta, Denver, Brooklyn, Houston, Minnesota, Boston, Sixers, Spurs, Warriors, Heat, Pistons, Clippers, and they're the new favorite? Is that what you're telling me right now? I don't think so. If I had one of these apps and I opened it up and Dallas Mavericks were the favorite after these were the lines like 2 hours ago, I'm sorry, I would legitimately think he's already a Dallas Maverick if that were the case. So if he is currently the betting favorite to go to Dallas, then I'm very confused. Thank you. I don't know. I just text Kalshi since that's what I see everyone else uses. Still the Raptors, according to other people. I will look at this. I have never really been on Kalshi, but I'm curious actually. The Raptors are clearly the favorites. Stream until trade or we riot. I mean, come on, man. That's funny. Advanced talks type of odds. Absolutely. I do want to, right now that I have your attention, please like this video and subscribe to Pensare Basketball. What are you even doing with your life if you haven't subscribed to Pensare Basketball? Are you a casual? Are you a real Raptor fan? If you're a real Raptor fan, how are you not subscribed? Also, if you're a real Raptor fan and you really, really want to know about your newest rookie, well, who better to tell you than his associate head coach from Santa Clara University, who happens to be just a genuinely awesome dude. Ryan Madry was in the house yesterday. Well, actually 2 days ago. We edited the video down, released it yesterday, has about 7,000 views. Dope. Love the response. Never know how these interviews are going to go, but people were very interested to know. And a lot of people found the interview to be very, very insightful. Ryan is extremely well spoken. And if anyone is going to tell you about Colin Murray Boyles, let it be the guy who recruited him, brought him to Santa Clara, and watched him grow for the last 3 years. It's a really good dude. Really good dude. Samuel Barefoot said was really cool seeing Buddy open up throughout the interview. I agree. You know, we were strangers when we started the video, but by 15 minutes in, a rapport had been built and the video got a lot better. Did I say CMB? My bad. I said Colin Murray Boyles. My bad. I got CMB on my mind because they said that he might be traded. No way. No way, man. AG a channel member saying join members as well. Yes, speaking of memberships, I do need to do a members live today. Joe, mind if I do it tomorrow? Someone said, holy smokes, Pen. What happened? Y'all give me these like little psychs, like, oh my God, holy smokes, Dallas. Breaking news, Raptors edging us. Yeah, that's mature. That's really mature. Get cheap seats here, Pen. Yeah, that would be fun. Okay. Where we at? The Mavericks and Clippers have discussed a trade centered around Klay Thompson and Kawhi Leonard. That's funny. You wanted leverage and you brought Klay's washed ass into this discussion. Are you kidding me right now? I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. You might as well have just said they've explored a trade for Kyrie Irving. At least get my curiosity piqued. Can you just imagine? Masai Ujiri was notoriously hard to negotiate with. We never really heard it too much because the Raptors organization was very tight-lipped. I wonder if the Mavericks will be as tight-lipped about Masai's shenanigans. Can you imagine Masai Ujiri calling up, Lawrence Frank being like, hey, I got a great offer for you. Heard you're looking to shop Kawhi Leonard. I'd like to give you Klay Thompson, who is 800 years old and can't defend a shadow right now, but he can shoot, and he's a former champion. I'd also like to give you PJ Washington and 2 second-round picks. Yeah, that's a lot better than Grady, Brandon Ingram, and 2 firsts. Okay, buddy. That's not even leverage. And also, like, to all the people who say, like, come on, man. Like, oh, the Warriors. What are the Warriors supposed to give up? Jimmy Butler is hurt. Why is Jimmy Butler a good idea here for the Clippers? So what young asset are the Clippers offering here? Yaxel Landerberg? Raptors dropped from 49% to 36% on Kalshi. That might possibly... Mavs have 5 first-round swaps to offer. Okay, I understand it. I do. I definitely do, right? From the Mavericks side, Cooper Flag, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard compete. But the Mavericks just dumped Anthony Davis, right? They just dumped Anthony Davis. Why? Because they didn't want to give him money because he doesn't match up on Cooper Flag's timeline. Now, flipping it around and signing a guy who's even older than Anthony Davis doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. It doesn't. The Raptors... the Raptors have a better structure in a they just made the playoffs last year. The Raptors did. Their star is 25 this summer. Like, this is the type of deal that kind of makes sense. This is like the Bucks trading for Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton to support Giannis. It's a huge, like, by the way, this Kawhi deal is a huge bet on Scotty Barnes. I'm sorry. The Mavericks is just like, it's weird. It's really stupid. 5 firsts. That's what the Mavericks want to offer. 5 firsts. They just picked Morez Johnson, right? So they have Morez, they have Daniel Gafford, they have Peter. You know what? Honestly, outside shot, yeah, sure. Kawhi Leonard does probably bring them into the playoffs for sure. If Kyrie is healthier than expected, I can see the Mavericks' interest, but not for 5 firsts. And again, like, Klay is bad money. Why? And he's salty. I don't know. I don't see it. Cam did nothing on the Nuggets. Well, that's not true. Cam Johnson played pretty well on the Nuggets. Raptors are so solid right now. Kind of want to keep it together, but I can't say no to a Kawhi possibility. Klay isn't expiring. Well, so is RJ Barrett. Offer him instead and then deal Brandon Ingram to a third team. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, if I'd be very biased if I didn't say that Kawhi and Cooper Flag actually do work together as basketball players. There's absolutely a basketball fit here. Is Clay like an older Duncan Robinson? Yeah, pretty much. What could the Mavs possibly offer? Clay, PJ, and 4 swaps? Or is it just the swaps that the Mavs have, or do they have actual picks? I think the Raptors should add Barrett to the deal and keep Ingram. Yeah, a lot of people think that, but unfortunately, next to Kawhi, Barrett works better. So, and also like Barrett makes a lot less money. Plus, in order to support Kawhi's extension next year, which is probably going to jump into the 60 plus range, you're probably going to have to you're probably going to have to dump um you're going to have to dump Brandon Ingram's money. Plus, Kawhi, the Raptors would shield Kawhi defensively. Do you know how good Kawhi still is defensively? He's still one of the 30 best defenders in the NBA. I'm quite confident in saying that. I know he's not like locked down DPOY candidate. He's still one of the best defenders in the NBA. You don't need to shield him from anything. Maybe 3 years from now, you can shield him. What is your gut feeling telling you about the situation? I don't know enough about the situation to have like a full intuitive gut feeling about it. My gut tells me that um, this will drag out for at least another day. That's why I don't feel like just holding my breath that it's going to break in like half an hour. You know what I mean? Obviously, if it does break, I promise you I'll be live within 10 minutes. Like if it breaks, I'm on my phone. I'm going to check my phone routinely today. If it breaks, if anything breaks over the next 4 hours, I'll be live and we'll talk about it. But yeah, like it's when another team comes in, unless the asking price is met. Now I don't know what the asking price is. Like I don't know anyone close to the Clippers, so I can't I can't know for sure. Obviously, if you're looking at this from the Clippers standpoint, their roster is built out to absolutely want a Colin Murray Boyles. Of course they want Colin Murray Boyles. Of course they want Colin Murray Boyles. But if you're the Raptors, you can't give him up. Like you cannot do this. Like if you did that, I would want no. I'm sorry. It's to me, it's pretty much a non-starter based on how he played in the playoffs. But let's just say he hadn't had that playoff sample. I might be thinking like you'd need to give me like at least Keaton Vogler back. Like I can't just dump a young asset because everything we're building right now in Toronto is on the basis that Scotty and CMB are going to be the most dynamic defensive duo in the NBA for years to come. This side of Wemby. So, and of course, there's plenty of offensive juice to go right between those two. So if you're trading one of those guys, you'd have to get at least something massive back from the Clippers in exchange for it. And no, 35-year-old Kawhi Leonard expiring is not it. Yeah, something should get done. There's too much smoke here. There's too many teams involved. It's getting messy, and I'm sorry. Like, yeah, as I said, if Colin Murray Boyles is reluctantly included in this deal, I'll be very upset. Like, I remember, when Scotty Barnes was being offered or not being offered when the Raptors media was trying to throw Scotty to Milwaukee for Giannis. I remember a particular person saying, "Oh, come on." No, Kevin Durant. It was, "Come on, man. It's Kevin Durant. Come on. It's Kevin Durant. It's Kevin Durant, man. Come on." And I just remember thinking to myself, you are never going to catch me saying that. There's no clip ever. Do you know how many hours a week I talk into the microphone? Between this and PC, it might be 30 hours a week, 25 hours a week. There's no clip of me on the planet saying I'm trading Scotty Barnes for anything. And I would like to maintain that stance with Colin Murray Boyles too. I know who you're talking about. Sid Sixero? No. I am talking about William Liu. William Liu said that. Come on, man. It's Kevin Durant. Again, those quotes are tattooed on my brain. It's tattooed on my brain. Or in Weisfeld, I would feel bad. Yeah, I would trade Scotty Barnes, but I would feel really bad about it. Like again, there's nothing wrong with it, man. This is a business of sports. It doesn't have to be so emotional. I'm not really mad at people for wanting to trade Scotty for Kevin Durant. I get it. I mentioned already, when you get a superstar into the mix, and provided you don't think Scotty Barnes is a superstar, it's really just good for business. People think about their bottom line a lot, right? So I get it. You know, if right now you're going to see the Toronto media push the Raptors to reconcile with Kawhi Leonard, it's largely because it helps. It helps the bottom line. It helps people read articles. It helps fan interest. All the people who work off the Raptors, as I mentioned, podcasters, writers, beat writers, reporters, all these people, their job gets a lot easier when Kawhi's here because it's a lot easier to write stories about a team with Kawhi Leonard making his triumphant return to the North. It gets everybody interested. So my interest is not that. I'm not trying to act all high and mighty. I promise you, my interest is not, oh, there will be more fan interest and this channel will make more money and there will be more viewers and there'll be more subscribers and blah, 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 blah. There'll be more playoff rounds to cover. There'll be more meaningful basketball to evaluate. No, I think, genuinely speaking, it would be really fun to watch a team that I really support uh, actually have a chance to win a championship. That's my entire thought process here. 3 years to try and win a championship with Kawhi. That's my thought. Year 4, probably overpaid and injured. But 3 years to try and win one with him? This is like Michael Jordan coming back from retirement. You know what I mean? Like, Tisquatch said, Rob, thoughts on Kessler? Is he not a better fit and need? Cheaper too. Cheaper than who? Cheaper than Kawhi? Are you talking about Walker Kessler instead of Kawhi Leonard? These are not comparable assets. Oh my god, that would be the greatest. Actually, I wanna show y'all something before we get out of here. Hold on. Shoot. Where are my posts? I actually designed something the other day, which was really funny. I think you guys might like it. Hold on one second. Oh, this is funny. Sorry, I think you guys might appreciate this. One sec. Pull this up. Breaking news from Shams Charania. Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs is still on the roster. I'm being told it looks like that's not going to change. The Spurs view Wembanyama as a key piece in order to maximize their young roster. And I love that maximize is capitalized for no bloody reason whatsoever. And this is how a lot of people feel about basketball right now. They're almost cool on RJ, but somehow, hey man, shout outs to Brandon Ingram for being a 52.2% corner shooter, one of the highest marks in the NBA. Hey, this news could not come out at a better time. Good for you. Man, stop including my guy Jacoby, bro. A Kawhi Raptors note to keep in mind: Toronto is currently around 5.3 million below the first apron. Sending out less money than you take back triggers a first apron hard cap. They can't really deal with that, so any trade almost certainly has Toronto sending out more money. Worth noting. Kind of puts a kibosh into my first deal, but it's worth noting that Grady plus Ingram, I think, equals exactly. It was, I think it was like a 1-for-1, right? It was a exact dollar match. You can dance around. You can add Mobo, remove Mobo, whatever. It's small. Yeah, that's funny. That is funny. How did Denver Nuggets get involved in this? Wow. Worst free agent signing in LA history. Also, do you know this really fun stat? Do you know the average that there are certain people in this world who scroll like between their phone and their desktop, they scroll the height of the Statue of Liberty every single day? That's crazy. That's funny. Um, Yo, shout outs to Canada. That was crazy. 92nd minute goal. I had lost faith. I lost faith around minute 88. I was like, nah, this team is deeply unserious right now. They're playing like absolute shit. Yo, why am I getting all of Ryan Dickinson's posts, but I'm not getting anybody else, and I keep getting the same one? Um, okay. Okay. So how do I like okay. These are my own posts. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I have been posting a lot about Alan Graves. Holy shit. Okay, where are we at? 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 It is yeah, this would be around the time when I talked about it. Okay. Also, I really think the Raptors should pursue Case and Wallace. Here we go. I leave you with this. Let this be the statement that brings Kawhi Leonard back. I appreciate y'all. Have a beautiful day. I'm gonna let this live run while you read this.